We're going to start out with some penis talk. You said there's a lot of things you can do for your penis, or were you talking about there's a lot of things you can do for my penis?
Both. Doing those basic manual stretches. I've had a lot of people gain a good ½ inch to a full inch in girth, as long as though you do the next steps. It'll get so bad to where someone may have a 4-inch flaccid hang, and it will literally atrophy to a ½ inch.
And why does this happen?
That could be from lion's mane? Like again, the supplement lion's mane?
Yeah, it's terrible. It's life. It's almost life ending. A lot of people get very depressed over it.
Daily Cialis. If somebody's utilizing these things too much, there could probably be some negative outcomes, I'm imagining.
You can have this non-responder effect to any drug after you hit a certain threshold. The problem is no one knows what their threshold is.
You've worked with people that have intimacy issues. What are some other things that you think people can do from health tactics that you use that could be beneficial there?
Go outside for a 10-minute walk. Before you take that walk, take horny goat weed, and you start remembering and talking about the first time you guys were together. The goal is honestly to have couples rushing back to their house because they're getting so aroused.
Anyway, we're going to start out with some penis talk.
Hey, let's
go.
You said there's a lot of things you can do for your penis, or were you talking about there's a lot of things you can do for my penis?
Both.
Okay, good.
Depending on if we're being on camera or off camera, you know?
That's right.
But yeah, so if we look at the basic modalities starting off, like everyone knows about the penis pumps and all that fun stuff. If you just look at the penis architecture and that fibrotic tissue that can occur, the scar tissue that can occur, what we're looking at is literally trying to manually manipulate that. So the simple basic stretches, the manual manipulation, the bending, twisting, things like that, doing those basic manual stretches, 5 or 10 minutes a day, starts to break up a lot of that fibrous tissue that can really build up, right?
Wait, so you're saying that guys that are jelking are actually...
No, that's... Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're
guys
doing
are
that.
onto something.
We're doing
those
that
jelkers.
First. Then what you're actually
Don't
doing...
say us.
Yeah, so you do that.
Keep your jelking up, guys.
Seriously, you should though.
Yeah.
As long as though you do the next steps. So
Okay.
the next steps, number 2, will be get a decent sized C-ring. So I try not to swear, so, C-ring.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Put that on the area. It keeps all that blood and that engorgement in the area. We are then either going to, before that or after that, depending on how much your own manual manipulation gets you more blood flow down there, would be the actual penis pump.
But cool question. Desensitized cock ring? Desensitized? What does that mean specifically?
What do you mean desensitized?
Because you mentioned desensitized C-ring.
Oh,
did I hear wrong?
I said I don't swear.
Oh.
So I'm not going to say C-O-C-K.
Oh,
I got kids,
so
I'm used
just
to
a
spelling
C-ring.
things out.
I thought it was like a desensitized C-ring.
No.
Okay, I was like, what is a desensitized C-ring?
It's the special stuff.
Okay, just a C-ring. Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, just a basic C-ring, little piece of rubber.
Yeah, okay.
Starting off on the right foot over here.
Oh, you're Googling it like, what's it?
It's so great.
AdamandEve.com/9776.
Oh, the misinformation.
But yeah, no, so you literally start off that simple. Manual manipulation, break up some of that cartilage tissue, potentially penis pump after that, C-ring after that, or vice versa, depending on how you respond to it. And the whole point is you're breaking up the area and you're bringing blood flow, nutrients. We say hemodynamics because that's blood, oxygen, different proteins. Like there's so many other cool things in blood trying to get that engorgement down there. Just off of doing that the right way, slowly working up your pressure, slowly working up how long you're leaving your C-ring on and how hard your stretches are actually being. I've had a lot of people gain a good ½ inch to a full inch in girth and then another 1 or 2 inches in length. So you have that baseline protocol because like we always say, we don't just take something. We do something, then we take something. You're doing that action, then you can complement it with so many other things. Everyone knows the tadalafil Cialis-based thing. More blood flow, you can do that. Low dose has awesome long-term vascular benefits. Like that's cool, but everyone knows that. If we start looking at some of the other things you can actually do, we can really look into like the topical DHT creams. Those can drive a lot of not just localized blood flow-based changes, but a lot of the androgen receptor-based changes that go on there. So I really got heavy into the adult industry and then over in the PFS community. It's like post-finasteride syndrome, post-lion's mane, all that fun stuff. And a lot of those guys, they'll have genital atrophy. So it'll get so bad to where someone may have a 4-inch flaccid hang and it will literally atrophy to a ½ inch or quarter of an inch and it'll actually look like clitoral tissue.
And why does this happen?
Damn.
So
that could be from lion's mane?
So there's a lot of different things. And
like
again,
the supplement lion's mane?
Yeah. So keep in mind though, this happens to 10% or less of people.
Okay.
So the vast majority of people, like I've taken lion's mane every day of my life since 2020. I always will. It's been like one of the biggest things for me. But there's always side effects. Everything always has potential side effects. So finasteride, lion's mane, ashwagandha, essentially even sulforaphane, anything that can manage that 5-alpha reductase enzyme has this potential to cause this like faux PFS syndrome.
And finasteride is typically used for hair loss, right?
Yep.
To help slow down hair loss, right?
Yeah, it'll manage that 5-alpha reductase enzyme. The problem with that, though, is what we see over there is it basically abolishes that. And then all of a sudden, no DHT, it starts to feminize you. It starts to drive a lot of neural atrophy. And it's scary, but a lot of the people I work with, their accounts are basically, they'll take it and like within 5 minutes, they're running to the bathroom and they're looking at themselves in the mirror and their skin will become less elastic. It'll look like it's melting. Their genitalia will atrophy. They'll start having the worst brain fog of their life. They'll literally start changing before their eyes and they're like, people freak out. It's like, what's causing this? And for that small subset of people,
Make sure you stay on mic there.
Oh yeah, sorry. For that small subset of people, like it's terrible. It's life. It's almost life ending. And a lot of people get very depressed over it. And I get it. It's tough. So I got really heavy into fixing genitalia because of the adult industry and then also in the PFS world.
Yeah.
Because that's a big thing. Because a lot of people could also have no neural side effects, but then they don't have that penile connection. So it's like they're not getting turned on by looking at a female walking down the street. And this doesn't happen, by the way, as often to females. I'd say it's probably like, if we say of that whole 10% maybe that are it's probably like 9.5% that are males. Still happens with females.
Wow.
I have a couple girls right now that it's mainly coming from lion's mane and Accutane. Accutane can dry out those sebaceous glands, which is cool to lose, and change those acnes and those overgrowths. But then you also lose the oil production in your eyes. So then they start getting dry eyes. They start getting macular degeneration. And there's a lot of things that can happen. So like with everything, every supplement, every drug, like actually read the pamphlet, from the pharmaceutical company you're buying it from, read it from your doctor, know all the side effects because they're all very real.
We had Dr. Mo on the show. He was talking about daily Cialis use. I think he was kind of saying like in the 5 milligram dosage.
Yeah.
And he was even recommending it for like younger people. Can we get desensitized to these things? Like what are things that we maybe need to look out for? Like, I think sometimes taking those kinds of things can be fun.
Yep.
You just throw in a little fun here and there. But if somebody's utilizing these things too much, there could probably be some negative outcomes, I'm imagining.
Yeah, and everything's always dose dependent and person dependent. So like if we're looking at like the longevity dosage side of things for like vascular endothelial health, you're looking like 2.5 to 5 milligrams. Very few people are actually going to be desensitized to that. Like they're not going to have those long-term chronic downregulations. It's usually the people that it's, having the extra fun where I'll go 20 milligrams tonight, 40 tomorrow. I'll mix in all these different sildenafils, vardenafils, like you'll mix everything under the sun. And then all of a sudden you start having massive downregulation. So over time, I've seen a lot of people have, and this can happen with anyone in reality, you can have this non-responder effect to any drug after you hit a certain threshold. The problem is no one knows what their threshold is. There's no way of knowing that. So your threshold may be so high that you'll never reach there in your entire lifetime. Other people might be after one dose. So whenever we see that happen, we start seeing the disconnect from neural tissue to penile tissue. When that happens, what's the first thing that goes? Blood flow. Your brain doesn't say, I don't need to reproduce. It doesn't say, put blood into my penis. I'm like, don't put blood in my penis. I'm on a podcast right now. It's got to be nice and full, right? But if you don't have that, it's not going to be there. Then you get depressed and you're hiding it. You're trying not to show it off. So that neural connection goes down first. Then from there, you start seeing the blood flow changes. So then penile tissue starts to atrophy. Testicular tissue starts to atrophy. And then all of a sudden, it's hard to just get an erection, to have a good orgasm, because orgasms are all oxytocin and dopamine dependent. So that dopamine, oxytocin in the brain, through the spinal cord, and there's like a dozen pro-erectile centers in men and women. In the brain, in different portions of the spinal cord, women will have areas in like the breast, nipple architecture, men in testicles, in penis, perineum. It's everywhere. It's actually super interesting in the female world. We're kind of going off script here, but in the female world, if you look at how many different orgasms they can have, it's crazy. It's dozens of different ways that they can actually orgasm.
Yeah.
And a lot of women like that I'll work with, they could just be general population or athletes, whoever. They're kind of like
getting warmed up by that.
Now I remember our conversation with Susan Bratton. I think she mentioned 21 different ways.
Right.
Yeah. It's so true though.
Damn.
Look at those delts.
It's warm now.
Those orgasm delts. The natural delts.
They are.
You could tell.
How can
Can you tell though?
I can. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me, what do you see then? What about them?
So if you look at your heritage, those muscle bellies and insertions are not always there, but usually there. So you have these awesome muscle bellies, these awesome insertions. If you would go side by side with someone who had bigger delts than you, but they don't have the same insertions, the same muscle bellies, you're going to look bigger every time. So a lot of African Americans on stage, they pop. Like they look so different because their muscle bellies insert differently. And then you look at some, white Caucasian guys and they don't have that same pop. They're big, but they don't have that same pop. And a lot of it is just, tissue insertion oriented. And obviously Caucasians still have that, but it's usually more predominant in the African American community. So for you, like,
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say right now, when you're relaxed right now, like size wise, you're kind of like, okay, like decent, nothing crazy. And then you do that, you change that small position, and now you see the roundness and fullness. So stay standing straight up. You just look bigger.
I got you. Okay, I want us to come back to the sex thing, but I have a feeling that you've probably gone down the rabbit hole of like genetic differences when it comes to like muscle building. Have you gone down that rabbit hole at all? Do you think much about that?
A lot.
Because we had a conversation about this. I'm just curious, like, what do you notice? What do you see when it comes to like athletics and just bodybuilding?
It's interesting because the genetic conversation applies for everything. So your genetic response to nutrition, your genetic response to pharmacology, to supplementation, to training, to sun exposure, to stress management, to emotional stress management, like it's all an epigenetic equation. So you have certain people who, and you see bodybuilding is the best example, right? They will turn pro and they've done it all themselves and they'll go to work with one coach and like they get worse results, like things aren't working the way they should. Then they go to some other coach, same kind of thing. Then the third coach knocks out of the park, becomes Mr. Olympia, 2 years. That happens generally not because they're doing something so crazy, but they're just doing something different. And that difference was what you needed because that's what you epigenetically responded better to. So sometimes it's not the magical pharmaceutical compound because everyone pretty much knows everything, It could be the difference of very high intensity and low volume training or very high volume, low intensity training. It could be the difference between having a more keto-based diet or a more higher carbohydrate, higher protein-based diet.
Yeah.
So, and then there's also the pharmaceutical side of things. Everyone will respond differently to testosterone, all the different androgens, the different peptides, the different growth hormones. Like there's always that response. And sometimes that's it. But it's usually when you hear about genetics in bodybuilding or in any sport for that matter, usually it's coming down to like one thing, like their response to this. And then it goes back to what we were talking about beforehand. It's also your muscle bellies, your insertions. We talked about it yesterday at your house. And over in the Olympics, one of the things that we do in the background is called 3D biological printing. So not everyone, but two of the people that did medal that I worked with this past year at Paris, we actually had 3D biologically printed different muscle bellies and cartilage tissue.
Their muscle bellies?
No,
okay.
3D printed. So literally just manufactured. And then you would go in, you would remove, you would insert surgically. And then now they can have the perfect run, the perfect sprint, the perfect catch. Clean.
This has been done?
Yeah, it's been done for a while now. It's done so much so it's creepy. In China, they have—
Of course.
I think China, that's going to go for everything though. Like they have actual robots walking around and they 3D printed skin. So actual dermal layers on these robots that now with the whole AI, they're starting to put that into their brains essentially. And so is
there any sort of regulation on these like 3D printed like ligaments or tendons that were, because, I'd imagine you can make them like pretty crazy, right?
There's a special technique involved with it that honestly, I don't even know or understand. That's kind of apparently out of my pay grade because I just know essentially right. Where that's done, how it's done, that it's a thing and everything. But the actual technology is not at the forefront. Like you can search and anything that I've found has been redacted. Like you literally can't find it online because everything usually has to be patented or there's some kind of paper trail, but a lot of things are redacted.
Even if you look it up, someone comes in and steals your computer in the middle of the night.
Yeah, right.
It's one of those deals.
You're just taking a poop, you go in, computer's gone.
Top secret. When it comes to something like a TRT usage, what kind of concerns should people have? Because we're just seeing so many people linking up with TRT clinics. And I think it's great for people to get their blood work done. And it's great for people to get recommended appropriate supplementation and stuff like that. But I do think there's kind of a lot of people out there like really just kind of fishing around for some testosterone basically. Mm-hmm. And just like, what's some thought that people should have behind that? And do you think there's any negative impact or effects of just, I guess, maybe long-term TRT? Because it seems like once you go to it and you use testosterone, it's not like your body's like, hey, now we're on board with like making more testosterone. And so when you come off of it, it's not like you're going to make more of it. You're probably going to make less of it for a while, take you a while to like recover from it. So maybe what are some things people should think about before they get too far down the rabbit hole of that?
I think first, it always has to be said that there has to be the basics in place. The training, nutrition, sun exposure, like proper sleep hygiene. Everyone likes to avoid those things, and we can see how much and how big of an impact those can have on us. So the basics first. Then you have to go through your own blood work mapping and figure out, okay, where am I at naturally? You could do some of the epigenetic tests. I've never done them personally because I'm afraid of having my epigenetic information out there because I don't know where the technology's going. Maybe one day there's this gene, then, we got to eradicate everyone with that gene. Conspiracy theory, whatever, but I'm not putting it out there yet.
Well, so what does the epigenetic test tell you? Like
everything. Like you could, if you're
it's not like just like 23andMe. It's more than that.
No, it's more than that. Yeah, you could find out if you're going to be a positive responder to different cancers. You could find out if you're going to be a positive responder and have a higher chance of having different cardiovascular events. And that's where like the apolipo E scores and those ratios and those genes, those alleles, really makes a big difference because you can know, okay, if I have this allele, then I can have more of a propensity to hold on to these fats, which at certain phases of life could be awesome when you're younger or earlier. And you get older, and then that gets kind of worse as you're holding on to these fats. You're not able to liberate, you're not able to move things around, Yeah. But without getting into the apolipo AEB conversation, going back to we were talking about
the questions about like TRT.
General TRT. There you go. General TRT. So you have those basics, you do your blood work, you find out, okay, where's my HSCRP, my CBC, CMP, lipids, thyroid, know all the basics, know where your testosterone, estradiol is at. Once you have those numbers, print it out or some way put notes on that. So say my libido is amazing. My estradiol is at 47 or whatever. Most males are like 40 to 60. They feel really good. I respond amazing. Like I can have estradiol like 200, 300. My libido just goes up. Whoa. Problem is estradiol is that high, then you could have potential problems with, there's some potential risk for like cancerous growths, some fibrosis changes, but no one's really pushing up their estradiol that high anyway. So it's really a non-concern. But you have this blood work and now you know, okay, I'm training this way, I'm eating this way. I know how I need to live my life to respond. Then I'm getting my blood work done. And I'm knowing, okay, this is my baseline. Then from there, if you want to dip your toe into that pharmaceutical world and go through the HRT clinics, maybe it's starting off with something like an HCG or ganadarelin or allarelin. There's so many different variations out there that just drive that intratesticular endogenous production. And even actually before that, don't even go that route because that's still an injection. That's kind of that next step. The over-the-counter supplements, the Tungat Ali's, Sustanch, there's Fedosias, like the list goes on of these endogenous androgen drivers that work super well. They really do. The problem is though, they'll never get you that supra physiological actions unless if you are one of those hyper responders. Because I've had a lot of people that are in the natural community of different sports, NFL, NHL, and they get an insane response off of creatine. They get a massive robust driver on testosterone, bleeds over to more DHT. They can then
on a normal dose of creatine?
No, we usually work it up pretty high.
How high?
You'll kind of taper it based on the person. You could start off with your traditional 5 milligrams. Mm-hmm. You also have to make sure how your gut responds to it. So you might have to switch between different varieties because everyone does respond and metabolize creatine differently in the gut. And that depends on gut biome and so many other things. But you work up with 5, see how you respond. Maybe take it intra-workout, getting ATP resynthesis. You're storing more glycogen better. Like to me, intra-workout's a really easy time. Most people are having their shake anyway. Mm-hmm. And then maybe you work up next week, go to 10. Mm-hmm. See how you respond. And then maybe go to 15. And then maybe go to 20. And at some point, what you're trying to do is find out if either your gut goes out or performance stops increasing. And I've had people, again, going back to the Olympics, where they worked up to 150 grams. Worked up, though. That wasn't, yeah, exactly. And there's no loading.
150 grams of creatine a day. I mean, I don't even know what that looks like. It's wild.
It's ridiculous.
Just like,
it is.
Scooping it in there forever.
You're having it at every meal, shakes.
Wait. So what exactly? Because like I've always been a good responder to creatine. I take 10 grams every day. I notice a difference. It's positive. I've never done more than that. So if somebody's a good responder, right? What type of differences will they see in their performance and hormonally? And is there is there a downside if you're not noticing any gut whatever? Because like sometimes, you know, you get a blood test done and you have these high creatinine levels and your doctor warns you, right? Yeah. Is there anything to watch out for if you're doing this?
As long as you are, and actually it's funny because you'll start lowering your homocysteine, because if you look at creatine and choline, that metabolism, that's 50% of that homocysteine spinoff. So you'll start actually getting healthier with a lot of things. Now, if someone does have a pre-existing renal problem, then yeah, EGFRs, HSCRP will go up, EGFRs will go down. So I use the extreme example of 150 grams. That's like 2 people that I've ever worked with. The majority, like in a lot of the professional sports and the Olympics, they'll probably be like 30 to 50 grams though. So still a lot more than people are taking. But again, if you're not seeing the benefits or you're getting the gut negative consequences, you stop taking it. At least you know your cap dose. But someone like you have those round muscle bellies. What you would start seeing is more fullness, more roundness. Your strength would go up. You'd start feeling better.
Looking for those gummies.
That's fucking.
Yeah, creatine gummies?
Yeah.
We have some.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I always use the powder at home, but like we had some sent to us. So I was about to just like gobble 10.
Might as well, you know.
What you got over there, Andrew? Look like you're building up some questions over there.
I'm trying to build up this tolerance for this damn ankle pain that I'm not going to get into.
Before that, don't forget.
Okay, go ahead.
Before that. So that means, because everyone's known creatine's been positive, right? But there has been a surge of young guys like, oh my God, creatine is great. So that means that for some people, creatine is like a super supplement.
Yeah, to the point to where like in the literature, people shouldn't be losing their hair. And yet, if they're a hyper responder getting all these androgenic actions, we see testosterone in labs go up, whether it be free or total. We also see downstream DHT going up. We don't see changes with estrogen, which is cool. But you start seeing this increased motor learning from the DHT, increased protein translation transcription, so just anabolism, building muscle tissue from the testosterone, and then everything else the creatine does, just as that cellular hydrator. And we're just talking about body composition and performance, right? All of the health benefits of creatine.
Hope for the natties.
This is exciting.
Yeah.
It's like groundbreaking. All the natural people are flipping out right now. They just went out, pulled their car off the road, flipped around to go to their local GNC.
They should. And just know, because a lot of people will not be able to tolerate like 50%, top out at 10, 15 grams. But you still notice more than 5 grams or 3 grams. And this is where it's tough, because although I read every piece of literature, every book, everything out there, I never limit my scope to what's found in paper, because if I do, I'm going to miss out on so many Super Bowls and Olympics and Olympias. It's like, I'm going to make sure my athletes are taken care of and see what works in application.
Yeah. That's going to be funny. Why are you so much bigger? Creatine. You're lying. Yeah. It's creatine.
I mean, everyone's already going to be upset the fact that he said, like, yeah, you're definitely natty. There are so many comments just said, nope, no way.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, you can tell. You know, like all jokes aside, like, and you are an impressive natural bodybuilder. I've just also seen dozens of you, which is awesome. I'm not one of them. I wish I had your muscle boys insertions. Like I'm 250 now, and like I take my shirt off, I start posing like I don't look that big. I get on stage, I shrink, I get smaller because my bones are so big. My muscle bellies, like my arms, like 20 inches now or whatever, and they look like they're like 16. Like if we do a front double bicep, I don't know what size your arms are, but you'd blow me away.
Nsima always looks big, but you look stupid when you're lifting.
Yeah. When I
get
get
lifting, it's fucking ridiculous. It's like, I'm out of here. I just leave.
Especially with the creatine. So.
I can't wait to go take more creatine.
That's wild. Holy shit. That's awesome. No, what I was going to ask, so not going to get into why the heck my foot's hurting right now, but we were talking in the gym, and, you know, like the holy grail of, they call it like the Wolverine stack or whatever, is BPC 157 and TB 500. But you mentioned a couple of other ones that I had no idea. I never had heard of them before. Can you talk to us about some of these healing peptides that seem to be working well for, you know, numerous people?
Yeah, I got a lot. There's a lot of cool tools. So if we slowly, we'll kind of summarize, right? We'll start slowly looking at one pre-synopsis so we know what's going on. So if we look at like BPC, first of all, just to start off so everyone's on the same page, all of these peptides do so many things, okay? So I try and see what's the primary reason why I would utilize it. If you look at it from an actin sequestering protein side of things, it's that actin, the scar tissue, really tissue healing as a whole. Whereas TB500 is, in my mind, more of the neonatal gene player. So neonatal genes are essentially the genes you would have right now if there was no damage. You got to this point in life with essentially no damage. TB500 is pretty much the only peptide that can turn that on. So I see that unique aspect. I go, ooh, okay, actin sequestering with BPC, so heal tissue, We go over to the neonatal genes, and that's where we really start seeing the TB500s. We then go over to something called GHKCU, so blue copper peptide. You can use it topically for your hair, for your skin. Like, it's absolutely awesome. But what it also does whenever it's injected, again, does tons of things, but one of the things, it drives stem cell migration. So it can pull stem cells to that area or globally. So red bone marrow will now donate more actual stem cells. So that whole process is CXCR4, SDF1, is basically receptor ligand based stuff. You'll basically skew that displacement so that your red bone marrow will literally give more stem cells into circulation.
Wow. To a specific area that you want it to go to?
If you want to, yeah. All of these, if you apply them locally, there is a difference in actual magnitude of effect. A lot of these are in that somatropic, like growth hormone-ish category, and they all rely on something called localized receptor-mediated clearance. We were actually talking about that beforehand. And how they bind to the localized receptors and how they clear will give more specific non-genomic action. So non-genomic basically mean like right now, whereas genomic being like more chronic. So no matter what, you're going to get the chronic, but you're also getting that localized acute effect too.
It's really interesting that all these peptides, you mentioned blue copper, and I'm just thinking like copper and grounding.
Yeah.
Right? Like how popular grounding is. So there's probably some sort of association or affiliation with that. And then I'm thinking like methylene blue seems to be like something that helps you to harness the power of the sun a little bit better. And then so many of these peptides, it comes back to like mitochondrial function.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that that's such a big driver to help people with health outcomes and even sports performance?
So if we scroll back in how we evolved as a species from cyanobacteria, so literally just bacterias, right? And then over time, that evolution process happened. We start seeing these lipid bilayers forming. That became mitochondria. So bacteria and mitochondria were brothers, essentially. So if we kind of take that and say that's what we started as, that's our basis as humans. That's our repair system. So there's also in our bodies the stem cell conversation, superoxide dismutase. You start going down the list of plasmalogens, of so many things that we lose the older we get, but it's still a lot of it is underlying. If there's ever a health problem or someone's not progressing in some way, it's most likely an inflammatory, oxidative, or mitochondrial problem. It's one of those three. And if you fix the mitochondria, that can also drive more repair. So if you would fix the mitochondria first, you tend to fix everything else. And then if you really want to get crazy in depth, which we won't go to today, but that's the quantum biology side of things, to where now we're fixing the cells at the cellular level with what we're doing now with peptides and things like that, medicine 3.0. Then you go to the quantum biology, and then you're looking at the actual EMFs, you're looking at magnets, you're looking at frequencies, you're looking at vibrations, and that's a whole other world of healing that I think that's going to be the next step, because we as a race are going to be able to live to be 100, 150, like almost everyone in the next 10 or so years. It'll be pretty common practice with all the therapies coming out.
Yeah.
Like the rate of longevity research coming out now is ridiculous.
I saw the other day that they made some sort of dye, some type of food dye that allows you to like see through the body.
I didn't see that.
And some of that has to do with, and I don't know what's true. I saw it on Instagram, right? But it has to do with some of the, the light that the mitochondria produces, and it's kind of playing off of that. But stuff like that could be revolutionary. Yeah. Obviously, there's probably some dangers to that too, just as there is some dangers with X-rays and MRIs and stuff. You're getting a certain amount of like radiation. So I'm sure using these food dyes probably isn't the greatest thing.
Wait, is it a yellow food dye, tartazine, to make skin transparent to see internal organs?
Yeah.
That's cool. I never heard of that. I gotta look that up later on.
Oh, isn't that? Wow, I mean, it's just like we're getting into some wild stuff, and you're talking about 3D printing. some body parts.
It's the stuff that no one ever talks about. And I think, just because the information is not really out there, and like I'm one person, I can only post up so much. And there's also there's dozens of people, hundreds of people that are putting out so much good content. I don't follow anyone because I'm just busy living my life, playing with my kids and everything. But I feel like there's a lot more people talking about this than I think everyone knows.
How have you been on the forefront of a lot of stuff? Because there's a lot of things that you've been talking about for many years that are sort of just now coming to the surface, like DADA and a bunch of other things.
Yeah. So I fell in love with education so much so that I would join different forums. I would join acromegaly forums, and I'd go on and I would just, ask people questions, and then I would offer to pay them to see their blood work because I was just curious what their IGF
John
scores.
Cena has some of that.
Yeah, right.
His giant hands and elbows and kneecaps and stuff.
Yep. And there's so much you can learn from that. So I started going to all the diseased populations. If I'd go to the ER or the hospital for whatever reason, if I really clicked well with a doctor, I try and find their contact information, and then I try and pay them for consults. And so like I try and learn from everyone in my life every single day on top of reading everything I can. Books, research, it doesn't matter if it goes with what I think is real or not. Because if I'm reading something that disagrees with what I've seen in application, it can still teach you something else. So like on this podcast, we disagree on something cool. I want to know why you disagree about it, because that might change my perspective. So everything's like, this is all through my lens. So I have to make up a lot of words. I have my own vocabulary, and it's tough because a lot of this stuff just isn't being talked about publicly, or it's not researched, or it's just all theoretical, you know?
Yeah. I want to just real quick rewind to when you were talking about mitochondria. Yeah. You've probably looked into like red light therapy and some of the research that like a lot of people, some people think it's BS. Some people think it's legitimate. From what you've seen, I don't know if you've used, do you find benefit there?
Tremendous benefit.
Okay.
Yeah. So going back to the erectile tissue, I have a lot of my male and female athletes, clients whoever has erectile problems.
I stand naked in front of it every day.
That's exactly right, though. So what you do, though, so it's cool.
Ooh.
So let's just go through this whole process, okay? So we started off, there we go. So started off first, we have our basic exercises. So we're doing our tugging, our pulling, our stretching. We're then going to potentially penis pump. We are then going to C-ring. Then from there, all that blood flows in the area. There could be localized IGF applications. There could be topically applied DHT creams. There could be tons of things that you add there. Then you lay on the ground, spread your legs, red light therapy, shine directly on your genitalia. And what I'll do, the next step would be, because that's awesome for the majority of people. If people are having like relationship intimacy-based problems, we would do that therapy together. And then there is some foreplay, and there are some things that they'll do together, or someone will start watching some kind of like adult material just to get that neurological connection to train them. Hey, this is good. You should release dopamine. You should release oxytocin. That's what's going to drive that arousal curve.
Wow.
And so then they can proceed. And afterwards, it's super important though that, the vast majority of the time.
Some wild shit. Watching some porn in front of the red light.
Right?
With a penis pump in your hand.
It's trippy,
But okay, no, first off, this is great. I'm going to lift my balls against the red light even more. Sometimes I've always been a little bit concerned. It's like, this is kind of warm, but it should be okay.
I mean, you're not putting it on it.
No, I'm not laying my balls on there. No, it's not burst.
Singeing them.
Yeah, right?
That EMR light's strong. Man, your sexual performance is very, very important to us, because our sexual performance is important to us, which is why, if you are getting ready and maybe you had a stressful day, you're not feeling the greatest, blood flow isn't working, you walk into a situation and your shit is just, it's not moving the way it should. That's why I partnered with Joy Mode, because rather than being like that, we want you to be like, we want you to be like this, okay? We want you to be able to perform when you need to perform. And the reason why we love Joy Mode so much is because it's not like your gas station dick pill or Cialis or Viagra, which are things that aren't bad, but guys end up being reliant on these things, and they can't end up working the way they should themselves. But Joy Mode has all natural ingredients that will actually help with your blood flow. I don't only like using this before having some fun, I also like using it before working out. And the ingredients are as follows: vitamin C, L-citrulline, arginine nitrate, Panax ginseng root. Joy Mode makes it easy and puts it in a packet where you can literally just put it in some water, drink it, and then before you know it, you're where you should be. And I'm serious. You guys give this a shot. You won't be disappointed. And it's not something that you're going to feel dependent on. This is good stuff. And I'm excited for you guys to get your hands on it. So Andrew, how can they do it?
Yes, that's over at usejoymode.com. And at checkout, use promo code
POWER, brother.
promo code Power Project to save 20% off your entire order. Again, usejoymode.com. Links in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
We want to get y'all throbbing. Throbbing. Veiny. Let's get it. I break the table. You've worked with people that have intimacy issues, and I think that's not talked about that much. So, I mean, what are some other things that you think people can do from health tactics that you use that could be beneficial there?
As lame as it sounds, good old walks outside.
Gotcha.
So you would start off, again, if there is intimacy-based problems in a relationship, go outside for a 10-minute walk. Before you take that walk, take something. It could be horny goat weed. It could be tadalafil. It could be the DHT. It could be so many different over-the-counter supplements or pharmaceutical compounds. You take that, both of you, and you both go on that walk and you start remembering and talking about the first time you guys were together. You talk about what it was like, what you were excited about, and you really relive that. If you really want to get trippy, you add in like some tiger milk mushroom beforehand to drive NGF. So you're getting more neural cascades.
Fucking my Amazon list right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Horny goat weed, tiger what?
Tiger milk mushroom.
Tiger milk mushroom.
Nootropics Depot. They have a really good one.
Okay. Let's keep going before I ask questions.
Yeah. So you're doing that. And then again, you're trying to train your body like, hey, I remember what it was like back then. Then all of a sudden, like the goal is honestly to have couples rushing back to their house because they're getting so aroused. Like I've had a lot of stories where it's like guy had to turn around because erection starting, or female is literally
sprinting back to the
female's she's producing so much fluid that then she has to rush back to the house. And that's a whole different conversation about female ejaculation as a whole. Or I hate saying the word squirting because it doesn't sound right. It sounds very vulgar, but every female can actually have that ejaculatory fluid-based response. It's a different type of orgasm.
Yeah.
So, I have a lot of women where if we're doing these protocols, I'm not sure why.
It's hell always, of a walk.
Right? Yeah. Best walk of your life.
Some squirting.
Well, no, not actually.
No, I know.
But the car. So I call it the car phenomenon.
Imagine if it did though.
Wait, because the car's like vibrating?
So it's funny. So the anecdotes I always get once we start correcting sexual performance in females is they'll stop at a red light and they'll have a spontaneous orgasm. Vibrations from the car, rubbing of pants on clitoral tissue. It just happens in a second.
Okay.
And that happens probably 70% of the time when we have someone fixed, And that happens all the time in the androgen-using world of females too, because they're essentially operating like males. So now all of a sudden, blood flow to clitoral tissue doesn't take 10 to 15 minutes. It's like 30 seconds. Like guys are 30 seconds, 60 seconds.
I have a question. Okay, so a few questions. You mentioned horny goat weed. Another guy came on the podcast, mentioned it, loved it. Is there a dosage? Is there any negatives to taking it too often?
Not at all. You want to look for the icarin content. Actually, going back to Nootropics Depot, they have a really good ratio blended product. It's that icarin content that really drives a lot of the action.
That site has a lot of great stuff.
They do too, I always try and if I use something regularly or I recommend my clients to, I always try and give people shout outs because they deserve it.
Yeah.
They really do.
How about the tiger milk mushroom?
Same place.
Same place, but any type of drawbacks to using tiger milk mushrooms?
No, because we talked about the lion's mane with the 5-alpha reductase. This does not inhibit or interact with that enzyme at all. So if you're kind of shying away from lion's mane, but you still want the NGF mimetic still driving that neurite growth, then you go with tiger's milk.
Great for both men and women.
Yeah.
Okay. And the tiger's milk one was the one where you mentioned if women take that, that'll.
It can. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's if someone has a bad neural connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's for real though.
Yeah. She doesn't have a bad neural connection. Her neural connection is great, but what if it's better?
Throw a little bit of that tiger's milk in her coffee. She'll be like, tastes a little different. Tastes a little different today.
And she loves her coffee. Yeah. I won't drug my girlfriend.
It's your third cup.
Oh my God. This is great fucking information. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, of course.
I see people sometimes walking on the beach and they're holding hands. And I've seen this older couple in Bodega Bay. They walk the whole entire beach, which is ends up being 3 or 4 miles. They hold hands the whole time.
Cool, yeah.
They're probably 65, 70,
Good.
something like that. I always give them props when I'm out there on a run. Yeah. I just think that's the coolest thing. So I don't know, if you're with somebody for a long time, you may not always want to hold their hand. You may not want to try to hold their hand for a really long time because sometimes it can be awkward for various reasons. But I think a practice like that is a really good one. Let's go on this walk and let's hold hands. It's so simple, but there's so many things going on in your body when you're making contact with somebody else.
Oh yeah.
So something as simple as just holding hands and going on a walk could be huge.
It's funny. I think one of the reasons why I'm so positive and so happy is because if I'm at home, I'm either holding a kid or a dog or my wife's hand. It's always that connection. You're always doing something. And going back to a lot of the longevity research in the communities, there's that whole untalked about love conversation or actually having that physical connection with someone, having that drive to love another being. That's where the consciousness comes in. And it starts changing that entire environment as well. So you talk to anyone who's been over 100 years old, and they have a couple things in common. One of them is that they always had something to do. So they always had a goal. And then the other big thing was that they always had someone that they loved, or a pet, or grandkids, or something to drive up that overall, not just recovery response, but that healing of the soul. As hippie as that sounds, it's that consciousness, soul aspect that we really don't take into consideration.
There's a third thing there too. Something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Someone to love, something to do, something to look forward to.
That's exactly right.
That's like a great combination of things.
And if you do that, then you do everything else. Then you worry about the longevity protocols and you worry about the nutrition. Like to me, before you even do nutrition or whatever, like you should have those basic things down. Have your life on track, first of all. Have your loved ones. Because I haven't had a bad day, honestly, since 2020. That was whenever I had my gallbladder out, got back home, and then a week later was the shutdowns, which was the best thing that ever happened to us. I feel bad it was so hard on so many people, but like I got out of that surgery and I was like, my wife brought my daughter into the hospital. I was like, I'm never coming back here. This is not cool. So we'd take walks, we would talk, we'd hold hands. And it was just such a big bonding experience. And it was like, yeah, this is what matters. Like it's my family first, work second, my health, education, everything kind of tied for third, and then my own athletic goals,
What happened with the surgery? What was it?
So my whole life, I had a malfunctioning, dysfunctional gallbladder. So I had Barrett's esophagus, I had GERD, acid reflux. So Barrett's esophagus is essentially that scarring of the throat lining. So you're basically going to get throat cancer. So I spent a lot of time reversing that myself so that I wouldn't get throat cancer. And then I realized, okay, if I want to stop any more acid problems from happening, I need to make sure that I don't have a dysfunctional gallbladder. It just so happened that I was pushing that prep super hard, and bodybuilding didn't cause it, but it definitely didn't help.
Yeah.
So, ever since then, it's been pull back, bare minimum type stuff. But gallbladder gave out, went to go into for the first surgery. And because I was so lean, I had my shredded glutes at like 3 or 4 weeks out, I was ready to go. You metabolize everything differently. Every supplement, every drug, everything. So the anesthesiologist essentially misdosed me, and I apparently crashed on the table. And when that happened, they were waiting for me to come out, and they went out and told my wife that I might be a vegetable for the rest of my life. And she's holding my daughter in that scenario. And I come out of like, oh, cool, surgery's done. And then she told me everything. Oh my God. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then like waited 2 days or whatever, got the surgery done, no problems at all. And again, I don't blame the anesthesiologist because you're not expecting a competition shredded bodybuilder to come in. You don't have those formulas to map out the equations. So like I never blame anything on doctors. They're doing the best they can. They really are. And like in today's society, they're overwhelmed, they're overrun. COVID took a big toll on them. And it's more the establishment above them that's not putting the right things in the med school because they have like a day of endocrinology or a day of nutrition. It's tough on them, and they do a really great job,
Yeah, I've seen there was a bunch of people that went to Congress and they had a petition, and RFK was one of them, along with Callie Means and a couple other people who were kind of leading the charge. And one of the women that was a doctor from the University of Stanford, she said, I never took one nutrition class in all my years at Stanford. It's like, how does stuff like that happen? Like that is completely absurd, I think. Like it just sounds ridiculous to me that a doctor at least doesn't gain any knowledge of nutrition, or in some cases they gain very little knowledge of nutrition and probably like a bunch of other things that you could do, like go outside and get the sun and things like that they don't learn that conventionally, at least for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because wouldn't that be the place to start? Somebody comes to you and they're saying all these things are going on, and you're like, oh my God, the person probably has high blood sugar. And then you would probably, say, let's get you outside on some walks and let's figure out some things that you can do. What are things that you think you can handle? Let's lower your carbohydrate intake, and you'd be able to fix them. I'm sure you have. I'm sure have you worked with people that are diabetic before and
all the above,
being able to help them get off of the medications and stuff?
Yeah, we've been able to get people off of insulins, metformins, like all the above. And that goes for diabetics, heart failure, kidney failure, chronic kidney disease, like every different kind of cancer. I've been super lucky. I've been a part of a lot of really cool therapies and a lot of really cool people. And it's, the fertility side of things, like it's crazy to me that I can have that big of an impact in people's lives. It's just cool. Cause I never thought like you don't think you can change the world. Like I never thought I did. I was like, I'm just going to be me. I'm going to be happy and I'll just figure life out. then I got my wife and my kids, and you start wanting to be a better person, and you want to start helping this world out because it's like, that's the person I want to be for my kids and for my wife, And then you start seeing, oh, wow, I was part of a team that gave this person their life back or their quality of life or something along those lines, their intimacy problems. They're now not going to get a divorce, and the children are not going to suffer from that. And it's just crazy that I could be a part of that. So it's super cool. I've been very lucky.
Let's dive a little bit more into the over-the-counter stuff, because I think there's probably a lot of people listening. There's probably a good amount of listeners that like taking their fair share of stuff that's not over-the-counter. Yeah. But there's probably a good share of listeners that, don't want to make that jump yet, don't want to go to the dark side. Maybe they don't like needles or various things. Yep. And so, what are some things, people that, want to perform better? These guys both do jujitsu. So like maybe grappling sports, MMA.
Yeah.
Let's maybe start there, and then we can kind of get into like maybe bodybuilding, powerlifting. But what are some kind of over-the-counter things? I know we have access to things like carnitine, and maybe let's start even on the side of like things that don't even need to be injected.
Yeah. Let's start there.
Yeah. So the big one, like Cissus quadrangularis, that is one. You just say Cissus because it's ridiculous to spell. Literally, it's Quadrangularis. I think Cissus quadrangularis. Sounds like you made it up.
Sounds like a Harry Potter spell.
Right? Yeah. Wow. Grow some hair on you or something. But so what it does is it actually drives articular cartilage mRNA synthesis. So all your soft tissue, you're talking about being into like the striking, kind of grappling-based sports. By the way, I call them all striking sports, boxing, MMA, grappling, just because it's easier. But in that world, soft tissue is getting damaged.
Yeah.
Your ankle, it's getting damaged. Yeah. So Cissus quadrangularis dose that you could dose at 1 gram, 2 grams, 3 grams. It also works as a faux proton pump inhibitor. So kind of like the big PPIs prescribed by Big Pharma, but it works pretty dang well. So if you do have acid reflux problems, you could also use it for that. So again, everything has multiple different uses. You're just trying to figure out, what do I need from it?
Wow.
What about like, go ahead.
No, so in general, something like that will, obviously people have different areas that are damaged, but over time of taking it, it could help repair cartilage. Yep. So I'm also curious about this. For example, it helps repair cartilage. So what if because people, like, for example, deep knee flexion, right? A lot of people have cartilage that's fucked up in the knee, and that kind of pattern hurts. Would working out that area through a pain-free range and using that, would that help stimulate because you're using more and you have an aid?
And you do that with red light therapy pointed on the area. So there's more mitochondrial action, more hemodynamics, more reason to say, hey, push this to this area.
Wow.
So most definitely. And then you could also wrap it. You can also put Penetrix cream on that area too.
What cream?
Penetrix. Penetrx. Little white bottle. You buy it off Amazon, Walmart, everywhere. It's a blend of like boswellia, arnica, basically just all over the counter healthy things for you. It drives localized inflammation so dramatically well. And the cool thing is it doesn't have a lot of the other negative side effects, like we're talking about some other products beforehand that can have some renal hepatic problems if you take it too often, or their NSAIDs. Like this is literally just like taking your basic vitamins, herbs, stuff like that.
Wow.
And it seems like jiu-jitsu and some of these grappling sports just take a tremendous
beating.
Tremendous beating, but also just a tremendous gas tank.
Yeah.
You got to have really good endurance, cardiovascular. Yep. And so what are maybe some things that people can take to kind of help with that?
I'd say Pico 2 is a big one. So Pico 2 will drive that hypoxia-inducible factor.
Type thing, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. You can drive oxygenation up so much. So
I've actually felt a difference on runs taking that before,
You got to watch it. So I was taking it for a while for my boxing. It will start jacking up your hematology panels, your CBC, hematocrit, hemoglobin, because again, hemoglobin, you're carrying oxygen. That's what you're trying to get. But start getting too high, things start getting too high, and then all of a sudden blood viscosity becomes a problem. So if you dose it higher, you can run into those problems. Most people don't, but just something to kind of mention.
That's peak O2, PEAK.
Yeah, O2.
Oh, peak O2. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, we're saying it fast. And
Picograms. What about, because you just mentioned it, elevating your hemoglobin and having that really thick blood and stuff. Mine has always been thick. Before I've taken anything, it just has always been very, very thick. I think it's due to snoring. What are ways you can recommend of like thinning that out and making it a little bit easier on my heart for pumping this thick ass blood?
A couple ways. So first of all, what were your numbers? Like, what your numbers have been at? And have they stayed there chronically?
I can pull them up, but yes, they've been there forever. And since getting on TRT, they've only gotten worse.
Okay. So like hematocrit wise, are we talking like 50%, 55, 60?
Yes, in the 50s.
55?
Yeah.
Okay. So technically in the research world, you will most likely not be able to get a doctor to phlebotomize you because, again, and that's a whole different therapy we don't need to go down. But if you're like in that 55, 56% range, there's no correlation to like cardiac events or risks or anything like that. The problem is you get dehydrated doing all the sports you're doing, and that ratio of fluid changes. And then all of a sudden that goes up to 57, 58, like those numbers start changing because you're dehydrated. So if you're in endurance-based sports though, like grappling's basically in the endurance strength-based world, you kind of want that thicker blood. So as long as your numbers have stayed the same this entire time, you're good.
Okay.
But if you start seeing that upward trend, that's whenever you start having problems. Because again, it's slowly getting worse and worse. But if it's always been 55%, hemoglobin's always been like 19, whatever your numbers are, it's been like that for years. That's just endogenously where you sit.
Okay.
But then if you are kind of worried, like some of the chelators out there, like IP6, so it's an inositol-based product that actually has a lot of good work at reversing colon cancer too. But that can slowly start to lower your blood count and make things a little bit easier to pump around. There's also the traditional baby aspirin. And the cool thing about baby aspirin, 81 milligrams before bed, I take it every day for longevity purposes because it actually allows fatty acids to get into neurological tissue easier.
Yeah, my hematocrit's at 55.
Oh, okay. And what's everything else for RBCs?
RBC. Where did you go? I just saw you. 5.81.
Oh, okay. So you're barely in that elevated range.
Okay. Yeah, and like I said, it's been there forever. I can look back at an older one just to see, but it's always had that big scary red flag, like, hey, you gotta, you know, and I have donated blood and I've done these things, but again, I'm like, I'm doing it to lower this thing that may or may not actually be high. You know what I mean? And I don't know what's good, what's bad. I just know that there's this big old flag right here, and I'm like, let me see if I can fix this. And then I start to get like varicose veins, and I'm like, oh my God, it's because of the thick blood. This is not good. Yeah. But then you hear about like, you know, this is a way different thing, but like blood doping and stuff. And I'm like, well, maybe this isn't the worst thing ever. But obviously I'm asking because I do want to, you know, kind of address this thing. Yeah,
definitely. And that's, so reference ranges only matter for you. So we try to treat symptoms or side effects over reference ranges. Because if you're doing that, if you've never had any problem and your numbers have never changed off that baseline, then you know, like, okay, this is where I just naturally sit. You could go the blood donation route, maybe not so much to pull down those numbers, but because what happens is in the blood, in the albumin specifically, you start to accumulate all those inflammatory proteins. So the therapy is called plasmapheresis, will pull that albumin out and they'll replace it with basically new, fresh albumin. It's clearing out all those inflammatory proteins. So if you can imagine, like you're always taking your trash out, but you're always leaving it in the garbage can. You're never actually having the garbage man come pick it up. That's basically what we're doing here. it's letting it to accumulate. So you go and basically recycle it. And if you can't get plasmapheresis because it's not done everywhere, then you just do your blood donation every, 52, 56 days, 60 days, whatever you fall into pattern wise. And you're good.
Yeah. So just again, so a year prior to those numbers, my RBC was 5.5. So from 5.5 to 5.8. And then my hematocrit was at 52. And then it jumped up to that 55.
Okay. So there's a clear elevation then. Yeah. So it hasn't been stagnant then. Okay. So in that scenario, that's when you are bringing in like a gram of IP6, usually morning, noon, and night. That'll start to chelate a lot of those irons. That'll start to bring down your overall hematology panel. If you would also actually start mouth breathing more. So when you exercise, if you're very energetically efficient, you're nasal breathing, that anytime you're like maximally exerting yourself, you have someone in a hold or whatever, you hold that breath just, autonomously. It contracts your spleen. That contracts into the spleen, then dumps out erythropoietin and red blood cells. So just the simple fact of nasal breathing, just because you're energetically fit, is also going to drive up a lot of that hematology panel as a whole. So blood's getting thicker because you're getting more energy efficient. So you actually want to start wasting carbon dioxide, start mouth breathing more. And the usual dogma is you want to nasal breathe more, right? But in what scenario? In this kind of scenario, I'd probably start mouth breathing when you train. Like not like crazy, but from now on, like open mouth, like start driving that process just to waste some carbon dioxide and to stop having that spleen contract so much.
Got it.
For years on this podcast, we've been talking about the benefit of barefoot shoes. And these are the shoes I used to use back in like 2017, 2018. My old Metcons. They are flat, but they're not very wide and they're very stiff and they don't move. That's why we've been partnering with and we've been using Vivo barefoot shoes. These are the Modus Strength shoe because not only are they wide, I have wide ass feet, and so do we here on the podcast, especially as our feet have gotten stronger, but they're flexible. So when you're doing certain movements, like let's say you're doing jumping or you're doing split squats or you're doing movements where your toes need to flex and move, your feet are able to do that and perform in this shoe, allowing them to get stronger over time. And obviously, they're flexible. So your foot's allowed to be a foot. And when you're doing all types of exercise, your feet will get stronger, improving your ability to move. Andrew, how can they get their hands on these?
Yes, head to vivobarefoot.com/powerproject and enter the code that you see on screen to save 20% off your entire order. Again, that's at vivobarefoot.com/powerproject. Links in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
Have you ever heard of the Boss Rutan O2 trainer?
No.
The reason why I'm mentioning that is because it's this device. Shit, it's in there.
I can pull up that video without sound.
If you can, that'd be great. I wonder if this would actually be beneficial. I use it a lot.
Okay.
So it's a device that you put on your mouth, and you'll have to inhale and exhale through your mouth. Okay. One side has a little flap where you forcefully exhale, right? And then one side has a hole that you can grade in size. And then the level one is this tiny hole. Yeah. So what happens is when you start working with that, your inhales will take you 25 to 30 seconds and your exhales will take 2 seconds. Yeah. And then like when you work up to the tiniest hole, right? So you're taking like maybe 2 breaths a minute, sharp exhale, 30-second inhale through the mouth. Would this be beneficial for this type of scenario? Because what I've noticed is as I've gotten better, you almost feel like this panicking sense in your heart but then it goes away, right? So yeah, do you think this could be beneficial for that?
And this is the device on screen right here.
Let's see this actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used that yesterday. I used it in my cold plunge.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good combo.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's meant to improve your improve the function of your like respiratory muscles, your diaphragm and your lungs. It's meant to do that.
Yeah, because you're trying to breathe from the lower lungs. You're trying to get that blood circulation. You breathe upper chest, like you're not doing anything. You're just wasting carbon dioxide. Yeah.
So I don't think this video shows me using it, but I mean, it shows the device reference.
That's cool though. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, but yeah, it sounds like in application in theory that should work out awesomely.
Yeah. Okay.
What are some things that maybe someone can do just to improve red light therapy, cold plunge? Because those are things that we regularly do and promote.
So we've already talked about the methylene blue, right? How that'll potentially.
Yeah, you can dump on more information on that. What is methylene blue?
So if we look at, the dye of methylene blue, it's technically, it can be actually administered because I did my own research just to make sure like pregnant women could take it. It can be administered in pregnant women, but we want to try and avoid that anyway. But either way, look at its usage and history and then see how it's been kind of changed off label. And now we start seeing the underlying mechanisms becoming a lot more clear. So if we look at those electron transport chains, mitochondria-based stuff, we're displacing oxygen, hydrogen. We're just basically pushing more energy. So we're essentially allowing our bodies to create more energy. We are driving up an overall management of oxidation as a whole because it's that hormetic stressor where it's basically saying, hey, there's an insult to your body. There's a pathogen, mitochondria, fire, send all your best immune cells out there. And then it gets there and there's no pathogen. There's no virus. So it's like, oh, I'm here. I might as well heal this torn bicep or heal this damaged calf or whatever. So overall, methylene blue also works as an antimicrobial, antiviral. So I told you like when I'm traveling, now I'm starting to take that just to make sure I'm not getting sick, So it does so many different things. So depending on how you're trying to apply it, it's going to change the dosage. So you can even use as low as 1 milligram in red light therapy if you're trying to get the energetic changes. Because in red light therapy, it's also weakening adipocytes. So those fat cells are going to get weaker. They're going to dump more triglycerides out into the bloodstream. So I'll do certain protocols with individuals where it'd be like vasoburn on an area. So Matt Porter's old product with the capsaicin and yohimbine, which works awesome for localized fat loss, burns like heck. Got to make sure you don't get on your genitalia. I used it one time and stopped because it got to the wrong area. And it was terrible. But you would use your vasoburn, you'd take your methylene blue, and then you'd stand in front of that red light therapy, for that 5 or 10 minutes to start getting the localized fat loss. It also bleeds over into the systemic world. So you start getting better neurochemistry, you start getting better energy production, and it's kind of like the overall cool player to go ahead and potentiate your methylene blue.
So obviously, if you're doing that with red light, you could also do that with sunlight.
Correct. Yep. Right. Same thing, basically. Not really, but
they have some differences. And then what about cold plunging?
Cold plunging is a tough one. I actually like for that modality, usually just to stay that modality. if we look at what it does for most people, that massively sympathetic response and then pulling it back down and managing inflammation so well, although there's things you can add to it, I usually like that as being a solo therapy, because with that, a lot of people get a lot of central nervous system strain, just worrying about working up. Like, I can't do it because I like the snow, but I hate the cold. Like, I can't be in cold water. So like, I would build up myself. I'd like start hyperventilating. I'm just bleeding ATP. I'm just wasting all of my central nervous system on worrying about that.
Yeah.
So usually it's like, think less about it. Don't have a ritual before you get in if you're that person.
Alex, I have a question for you, because again, that's the thing that I've noticed with a lot of people about the cold plunge. I've heard Mike Israetel talk about it. He's like, I hate it, I can't breathe in it, blah, blah, blah. But it's a learned thing to learn how to, because like I've been using it for a while, that I can get in and immediately come down to breathe and breathe slowly.
That's cool.
But that's the thing I wonder. It takes a while to get there, but there has to be a central nervous system benefit there if it doesn't end up stressing you out, right?
Oh, I agree. Yeah. It's something I don't want to learn, honestly.
That's okay.
But it does. Like, if I would force myself to do it, it would only be a benefit to me. It really would. I'm just I just honestly don't want to.
Have you tried it?
No. I refuse to try that cryotherapy. And I've had thousands of people do all these therapies because they work so well. And honestly, in like 5 or 10 years, I know I'm going to be doing it. But
I wondered if you babied yourself into it and you went from like hot to cold.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it would not be as big. If you go from like a sauna or something, it's so much easier.
Yeah, I'll probably have to do that.
It's really not even that it's not bad. It's just actually makes you just feel amazing.
Yeah.
It just feels like you're a little kid and you just put your jams on and your parents tuck you into bed.
Yeah. No, seriously though.
Feels like that. And
that's what everyone says. Like,
feel so calm and relaxed afterwards. Feel like a new person.
Yep.
Feel like you really recovered from all the different shit you might have done that day.
And see, it's also tough for me. The reason why I haven't forced myself to do that is because I have my recovery down to a T. So like, it's crazy, but like, I can literally get so much neurological recovery emotionally just by being with my wife for 5 or 10 minutes and looking in her eyes, or holding and playing with my kids. So it's like, from the emotional and central nervous system, they're my recovery. They really are. If I have any kind of myological, like muscular or physical kind of recovery, it's usually calories or something else I'm trying to drive up that recovery, or sleep, or sleep on both sides.
There's obviously another thing. I'm curious your thoughts on it. You know, so many people talk about the how it inhibits inflammation. So if you're a lifter, it inhibits the benefits that you're getting from training, right? So if somebody does like that modality, but they don't want it to inhibit their training too much, how would you suggest that they use it if it's something they like? Or would you tell them not to use it?
I would say definitely use it. Either use it on only rest days or just away from the workout perimeter. Okay. If you look at that inflammatory process of hypertrophy or adaptation for any athlete out there, doesn't matter, you don't have to be a bodybuilder, it could be anyone. There's no hard numbers, but what I found over the years is if you're giving it 3 or 4 hours, I mean, how much inflammation, like, there's always gonna be inflammation, but at that point, you're kind of shifting to like the micro trauma, the DOMS and stuff like that, that initial chemical change, that fibril change. To me, I see that more as like a couple-hour process. So for me, if your main goal is athletics, I wouldn't use it 3 or 4 hours before or after your workout, your main weight training session or your main training session, whatever. And then maybe you do like weight train in the morning, cold plunge at night, or opposite, because cold plunge kind of gets you ready to go for the day. So maybe you do cold plunge in the morning, training midday, walk at night, or something like that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, for sure. It's kind of like in the longevity community, rapamycin therapy, where it literally triggers autophagy, but it blunts mTOR. And nothing in here's like a light switch. It doesn't work like that in biology, but it blunts it. So that could be bad if you're getting old and frail, or if you're trying to maximally stimulate mTOR. But we're not talking about taking 20 milligrams every single day. You're doing 3, 6, 9 milligrams only on rest days, and it drives autophagy on those rest days. It'll clear senescent cells. It'll drive up recovery, and pretty much does all good to make sure that you are living a long, vibrant, healthy life and recovering. You know, so same kind of thing. It's more dosage, duration, frequency.
Okay.
We had a ultra runner on the show, Anthony Nukel, and he was talking about utilizing a sauna and ketones post exercise, and he felt like it had post exercise like impact, basically almost like mimicking him running even further than what he did for the day.
Yep.
Can you comment on that? Like, why do you think that's
it's a protocol therapy? Yeah, it works out so well. You have the heat causing the receptor uncoupling changes globally.
So that might be good for these
then-
guys. I think you
Seriously.
already practice that, right? Don't you
Yeah.
get into
You
sauna
get into
often
sauna.
afterwards?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have that sauna driving that uncoupling aspect. So moving ligands, hormones around more efficiently. Then you have the ketones fueling cellular action, which means it's fueling your own endogenous peptide release of every peptide you're endogenously normally producing. So tons of different ketone products out there. We talked about that beforehand, but essentially doing that post-training, you only have to watch for dropping glucose levels too much, depending on the person, but it's also acting as a positive nutrient partitioner because of that. It's going to start driving all nitrogens, all proteins, all carbohydrates, all glucose, everything into actual muscle cells. It's going to start storing more glycogen.
I have a question on that, just because like I have these I have this ketone supplement. I haven't really used it yet, just because I haven't been sure about the best context to get the most out of it. There's a supplement called Ketone IQ. You've probably heard of that.
Yep. I like that.
And you know they've mentioned, and I know other grapplers who use it, but I'm trying to figure out how can I use it so it can be most effective, because I know it can be, but I know there's time I took it, I didn't feel anything.
Yeah.
So I would assume that has to do with some of your nutrition, and it probably has to do with your fast or not, but how can you get the most out of something like that?
So let's take your situation specifically, because it's easier when you have specifics. So for you as an athlete, are you lacking on the performance or the recovery? If you had to pick one.
Oddly enough,
Neither.
everything's pretty good,
So
but
just
it can
better.
always be better, right? So, but right now there is nothing that like, there's nothing lacking on either side.
So when that's the answer, we drive the performance. Because
Okay.
after you drive that, then you worry about the recovery.
Exactly.
Because if you recover first, you're only recovering so much. So driving the performance would generally mean more of a pre-workout, pre-training setting. So with that specific product, what was your dosage? What were you taking? 'Cause
It's
there's
just one of the bottles, one of their little bottle things. So I think that is one dose. But
some people need 2 or 3 of those bottles, and it can add up financially for a lot of people. But the dose really can come in massively for a lot of people. But if you're working up to that high of a dose, you can also use it infrequently. So maybe you're only picking on the 2 or 3 days of the week whenever you're really trying to drive up the overall output. And then maybe another 2 or 3 days, you would cycle in like Neuropept or something like that for motor cortex
still haven't
functioning.
used. I've heard about that so much. Haven't used it
Yeah,
yet.
it's cool.
I would say that the KE4 from Ketone Aid is very potent, very powerful.
I got it in my bag.
And
KE4.
yeah, I use it pretty often. I think with that one, I'm not familiar with Ketone IQ and like the dosages, but I think with KE4, he could probably take like half, and that would probably give him, what,
Yeah.
15 grams or something
I
like
think
that?
so,
of
yeah.
Ketones.
If you do half of a cap, that'd be 2.5 mil.
You should be able to feel that, right?
You should, yeah.
Question for you guys: What would one feel? And because I do a lot of my grappling without eating right before, so I eat like a big meal in the evening, sometimes 1 or 2 meals. I don't like eating before grappling.
Yeah.
So are these things more effective if you go into it fasted or not?
Yes, but
I think
no.
it'll help you with
Yeah.
fasting in a way.
Yeah, so it's funny, yes, but no, meaning you'll feel the effects faster, which is also cooler. Like I take my ketones every morning upon waking because I do fasted cardio for 15, 20 minutes, then I go weight train. So to me, it's like, that's my immediate fuel that gets me jacked up. I go out into my gym, I have my red light therapy, like I'm good to go. I don't need anything else but those 2 products. And so in your scenario, if you're waking up fasted, most definitely, if you had a meal beforehand, it's not going to blunt the effects, but it will feel like it's blunted because you're not going to get that hit. Like normally, like with the KE4 variety, I feel it in like 2 minutes. Some people, it might be 5 or 6 minutes, but it will definitely kick in
How soon do you take that before you do your fasted cardio?
right before.
Right before.
Yeah, right before. Because I'm using it mainly for that neurological energy driver. And you asked about what you feel. It's usually that overall sense of focus, mental clarity, muscle fires, like things fire and function easier. It's almost like whenever, if you can imagine having like the best cheat meal of your life and you went and had a training session, it was just good. You weren't bloated. Your vascularity was crazy. Like that's kind of what we're getting with exogenous ketones. If you're responding well to them,
Yeah.
and if you're not, it's usually a dosage problem. If it's not that, try a different product.
Okay.
Because I don't believe there is a bad exogenous ketone product out there. It's more which do you respond better to, because some people need the ketone salts.
Yeah.
Some people don't. They want the KE4 variety, and then depends why you're using it too, but got a trial and error pretty much.
Got me excited. Yeah, I haven't used I used one a long time ago. I didn't feel it, so I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
But I have a bunch, and I'm going to use it in the way you
It's
talked about.
different too. Like you may not like feel it. Like it might not be anything real crazy, but you might feel it in the way that you feel the difference between having hydration and not having hydration.
Yeah.
You know,
just like a different level of focus. And that's,
it's almost like you die out slower rather than you have like a burst of energy that's crazy.
Yeah, the gas tank gets a little bigger.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You combine that with your creatine, your Pico 2, your red light therapy, you're going to be bulletproof.
I have a question. What do you think about any type of beet supplements, powders, and or, you know, eating actual beets? A lot of people talk about that for cardio.
Yeah, the nitric oxide benefits, that just ability to handle more oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. Yeah, awesome. All of them are awesome.
Okay.
You know, and all of the basic nitric oxide supplements, the different nitrate products, the different citrulines, like they're all so awesome. I feel like today, at least I think a lot of people basically are still like, there's so many supplements and a lot of it's garbage and trash. I think it's the opposite. We have so many options with over-the-counter supplements. It's awesome. And they all work so well. It's more, do you need everything? Because we can have like, been to your house, it looks like my house where there's 1,000 bottles. And it's like, I'm not using these all the time, but you know, I got everything on hand if I need it.
Yeah.
You know, but it's easy to get caught up in that trap of, oh, I'm going to fix this problem and that problem, that problem. And then you, like I have a little supplement dish and then it gets filled to the top. You're like, oh, I got to pull back. I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah. So I'm on the other side of things. So like for me, jiu-jitsu, I'm not as efficient as Nsima. So I do need that recovery side to get a little bit better, because like one session obviously will wreck me at times. I'm trying to be better at that and trying to slow down, trying to be cool. But, you know, at the end of the week, I'm like, man, I'm pretty banged up. And then, you know, what do? You go again and again and again, and you just kind of end up hurting yourself. So how about, you know, ketones for recovery?
Ketones post-workout, but now we would use cold plunge therapy. Because in this world, you have an excessive amount of damage, inflammation, oxidation. So there's only so much inflammation you need to create an adaptation response. Once you kind of exceed that, you're just digging yourself into a hole, and you'll never be able to recover out of that. And then your ankle gets hurt when you're driving on the car, you know?
Yeah.
So if you would do that with like your, again, 1 or 2 of the hardest sessions of your week that are like always damaging for you, and do, if it was the KE4, you would probably want to go with a full capsule. So 5 mil, that can do a lot of good for you.
Got it.
It is funny though, Alex, like I've heard so much shit about like cold plunging within fitness. Some people love it, some people hate it, but you know, it actually feels, because I have a cold plunge in the sauna. After I do that, I'll do that maybe sometimes a few times a week if I really feel beat up. After I get out of that, it's like the body feels like the fatigue has been washed away.
Yeah.
It's wild. And then I'm like, why are people saying this is ineffective? Like, why are people saying it's ineffective?
I gotta push myself to it now, you know? You're getting me excited to try it out.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, like I'll beat my body up. I'll go in there. And again, I don't use it a crazy amount, but I'll go in there, come out, boom. It's like next day, nothing.
Well, how bad it sucks to be that cold is a thing. It does suck.
It does suck.
But it's exponentially, the results are exponentially way above that. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. Like, we're not just like gluttons for punishment. We go in there and we legitimately feel different and way better when we come out.
Did you guys ever try like a Shakti pad?
I have one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
those
that
awesome?
thing. Yeah, you use it?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, why do you use it? Why do you use it?
I use it for the recovery benefits.
Okay.
So,
Oh God.
I got too excited. Keep on.
Watch
That's
the cord.
okay.
Broke something.
so TRPV pain receptor wise, you're trying to hyperstimulate and you'll get super sympathetic.
Yeah.
And it hurts so bad. And then it pulls you back
Just like
down.
the nails and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's literally like little plastic nails. I have the lowest level one. Which one do you have?
I have the highest level. I have both the lowest and the highest level one. Wow, this is awesome. The reason why I love you mentioning this so much, Shakti, Andrew, is because I look at the Shakti mat similar to how I look at the cold plunge. Because initially, when I started cold plunging, I fucking hated it before and after, right? But when I learned how to breathe and slow my breathing down in the cold plunge, it's not a bad experience. Actually, you get in, and 30 seconds later, it's pleasurable because you're breathing slow. Same thing with the Shakti. When you get on it, you're like, ooh. And then you start slowing down your breathing and you melt into it.
Yeah. I would start off with it on the bed because you put it on the floor, hard surface. Oh, does it hurt? And then you got to roll off.
Have you gotten it on your booty cheeks? Like, have you?
Yes. Oh, that's rough.
Yeah.
Back to your head too, because they make that pillow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pillow is really awesome. My wife used that all the time. Yep.
That's really cool. It's great for recovery, huh? I wasn't sure about that.
Amazingly beneficial. That's another reason why I haven't done the cold plunge. Because I'm like, I like this. It's so much easier. It's like $100 or whatever for the little mat, you know, which price, who cares? But I don't have to overcome any big hurdle of, I don't want to be cold right now.
I love this, just getting weirder and weirder. Like I have a bunch of gravel in my front yard. And
honestly, that would work.
When I'm walking outside, I walk on the grass and stuff to get grounded. I'm like, my feet are so sensitive. I'm like, I should just walk on that gravel. And I walk on it and it sucks. But I'm getting used to it. I'm getting better.
It helps. Yeah, it really does.
Getting, I guess like, you have all these sensations in your body. And I think sometimes we're so tense and so tight. I think that happens with the cold too. I think we're like overly sensitive to it. And then we also have a hard time regulating our temperature. So another benefit I've gotten from cold plunging and using the sauna is just better temperature regulation.
Oh yeah.
I'm also a lot lighter, so that helps too. But
I need that then, because metabolically, I'm always burning.
Oh my God,
right now.
yeah.
Like, I'm always hot.
Yeah, I was like that.
CPAP on at night, a big fan.
I was like that
on
for
me,
years, and every time the summer would come around, I was always like, I'm getting the fuck out. I mean, I still usually do leave in the summer for quite a bit because I have vacation and stuff like that, but I deal with the heat way better than I used to. So I think that the cold plunge and sauna have helped a lot. Obviously, I lost over 100 pounds too, and that didn't hurt.
Definitely helped.
Yeah,
I saw some of those pictures at your house. And with you and the family, you got that head.
big old pumpkin
That's
head.
crazy.
Nice and round.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're all striated and vascular.
Yep, time to get in shape.
Right.
So we mentioned grounding, and you didn't freak out. You mentioned EMFs, and these are things that are, I don't know, I guess we'll say fringe, although to us, they're not.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
They shouldn't be.
I don't know what that is. Maybe it's just like not a Western thing or whatever it is. But with EMFs, like, can you educate us and our listeners a little bit more on that? Like, again, that's something that people will be like, oh yeah, I heard of that, but then completely ignore it and never address it. I know it's difficult if, your phone, well, that's a RF, but like these modern things that we can't live without, like, oh, well, whatever, I'm not going to get rid of it because I need it. But like, what are some things that we really like shouldn't be ignoring when it comes to EMFs?
I think with everything, it's always used for abuse, because we can't escape our society today. I don't think we can really look at what our ancestors did and say we should be doing that. I like the principles of that though. The principles of eating healthier foods, of eating your meats, of having your healthy fats, of getting outside, getting sun exposure, walking without shoes on. Like, I love all those principles, but that hasn't been reality for how long, Mm-hmm. So instead, we now take those principles and say, okay, today's society, I have to work 8 or 12 hours a day. It is what it is, because I want to provide for my family. I love working. Like, that's our society. But now we have the things like for the blue light. So you have the blocking lenses. You have the saffron supplement to act as like that intraocular shield against blue light. You have the grounding to basically, it's just like electron donation. So why do we eat fruits? To donate electrons. That's all the antioxidant means. It's just donation of electrons. So we ground for that purpose. When we get into the EMF world, this is where it's tough, because it's also kind of kissing cousins with quantum biology. And this is where you're dealing with all the different frequencies and the different vibrational states. And so as you are changing your vibrational state, you can start seeing different processes occur. Some of those being tumor cell growth, cellular mitochondrial dysfunction, like any kind of health problem, you can pretty much kind of pull back to there being some kind of an electrical and some kind of a frequency vibration-based change. And you talk about this, and again, everyone goes, oh, tinfoil hat, like it's not real or whatever, because it's so hard to understand. A lot of people don't understand it. And obviously, companies don't want to lose.
I don't understand it. That's why I'm like,
it's tough. It's so tough, right? So you're changing the vibrational frequency. Mm-hmm. So you have your own frequency. Everyone has their own frequency, essentially. If we were to be able to see the spectrums of electromagnetism around everyone, they would have their own. There'd be one over there, one over there. Like, it's really creepy, because if you ever see how kids look at the world, like in awe, right? Why is that? Because they can see those. So to them, everything is beautiful. And then you really want to get creepy with it. Go over into like the Gandhi-based worlds and a lot of those people, and they talk about enlightenment. Mm-hmm. And what they always say is once you reach enlightenment, you'll never find anyone like ugly, or you won't hate anyone. Everything's beautiful to you. Every person, every creature, every flower, every tree, because you can see these, Like, I have that same mentality. I can't see those. I hope to one day. And that sounds kind of crazy. But like, everything is just so beautiful and gorgeous. And the kids can see that because they can see those actual waves. Interesting. So this is where you get into the whole vibrational conversation. And it's so tough though, because we're exposed to so much. We're going to be exposed to our phones. We're going to be exposed to our laptops, computers, like everything. So to me, it's just trying to moderate things, you know? And like, I like how this is actually wired and not Bluetooth, because I don't use Bluetooth headphones because a lot of the issues that can occur with that.
You avoid those too.
Yeah. I mean, it just makes so much sense. And I've had so many people come to me with tumor growths around their ears or in their ears after 5 years of using like Bluetooth therapies. And to me, correlation never equals causation, but like, let's track the patterns. Like, you know, it makes sense on paper, then you see it actually happening. And I would rather err on the side of caution. Why not just wire it? To me, it's a simple change, you know?
I remember David Herrera, the first conversation I ever had with him, and probably the reason why we became friends is he's like, diabetes has hardly anything to do with sugar. It's a frequency. And I was like, I need to learn more. Like, I just need to know more. Like, maybe what he said, like, maybe I don't agree, or maybe I'll find out that that's bullshit or whatever. But I just want to hear more. Like, that's so interesting to me. And he boils everything down into being like a frequency. And you start to investigate and start to look at things, and you're like, yeah, well, I guess he's kind of right.
Well, it's tough. So again, quantum biology wise, super deep stuff. I barely understand any of it. It's something I'm trying not to get into too much because it makes you kind of overthink things, you know? But if you look at us as creatures, we are consciousness that's essentially wrapped around vibrating strings. So if you understand the frequency, that makes so much sense. You understand that energy basically never gets destroyed. So you're just passing from one energetic form to another, which makes sense. But then you pull back to the body that we're encased in, and you have to take care of that. So although like Herrera is so right on that vibrational status, there's also the actual physical status, the biological status that we can't separate our consciousness yet from like our bodies. Like that's like, right, the goal of like enlightenment, everyone's just gonna be like floating balls of light or whatever. But yeah, so we also have to take care of this body that we're in, because our consciousness, I mean, it's not useless, obviously, but we like the bodies we're in. Like, I want to be able to move and play with my kids. I don't want to die. I don't want to go to that next phase yet. And like, I'm not afraid of death or that next phase or whatever, because whatever you believe in, there's always something else. There's always something more, whether it's heaven or whatever you believe in. So to me, it's like, it's that next phase. So I have a game plan. Me and my wife are going to live to be 120 at least. And then we're both going to peace out together. We'll see our kids, our great-grandkids, you know, great-great-grandkids, like everyone. We'll go to that next phase together. And then whatever happens there is going to be awesome. And then we'll wait for them. And there's probably going to be a phase after that and another phase after that.
Going to go to like Switzerland or something and get killed together?
Probably. Yeah, you know.
I think you can do it there legally.
I can't say the joke or she'll get mad at me, but I always would like to pass in the bedroom with some body part smothering my face.
That, for me too, would be the way to go. I'm going to get slapped
for that.
That would be the way to go.
It was worth it. That's a good joke.
Right?
Is it a joke though?
It's not. Like, that's the way I'm going to go, and then she'll just pass on top of me. That's how they'll find us. You know, like how cool would that be? Like, oh look, they loved each other.
Like they were having a good time.
Right? Then you defecate after you pass. So
man, then things
not the best scene for them to pick up. But I'll be watching from somewhere else.
Didn't experience it.
Yep.
Things go a little south from there. You know, I would say to like simplify some of this stuff for people, I think it's reasonable to understand that humans are addicted to light.
Yeah.
We're addicted to light. There's people out there that know and understand that. So they put it in our technology. Maybe it's not evil. Maybe it's just the way that these screens are. I have no idea. But we're addicted to light, and the light that we should try to get is the sun. You should try to get outside the best you can, as much as you can, appropriately for your skin type. You don't want to burn, and you don't want to, melt out there all the time. And then I think a lot of things fall in place from that, because I think the light and the dark cycles, our circadian rhythm, sort of orchestrates our behaviors later on. So if you can get outside and see the sun rise in the morning, if you can get outside and see the sun go down in the evening, maybe that's not always convenient. Maybe you can't do it every day, but you just do your best to do that. I think that you'll start to find that when you miss it, you'll miss it.
Yep.
You'll be like pissed at yourself. You'll be like, damn, I fucking missed the sun coming up today. Damn, I missed the sun going down today. And you're right about like things do seem more beautiful when you start to view some of these things and you start to prioritize these things, because I think they're things that, for whatever reason, I don't know where or when it happened, but we just got so glued to maybe the television, and we got so glued to just being inside so much.
Yeah.
When I've traveled to some other countries, there's so many people outside. And that could be because the place I'm going, maybe because they're bigger cities and they're touristy and stuff. So, but people are they're outside and they're moving. And I think that's the message. I think we start there, and then everything else, kind of falls in place after that.
The hard part is it's not sexy. It's not sexy to say, take a walk outside and get sun exposure or ground.
They're like, I live in Minnesota. It's like, okay, well, just for the couple months where it's nicer, go outside. When it's freezing, I don't know, figure out something else.
Or red light therapy. Like you can always do something. But again, it's harder for people to do something than to take something. So it's always, what pill can I take? What supplement? It's never the training, the nutrition, anything like that. So yeah, you're right. Like, honestly, if you want to start off in fitness, like anyone watching, get a walk outside. Start walking outside, getting sun exposure, then start tracking nutrition, then start training, then start worrying about your sleep. Get all those things done, then go to supplementation. Then after supplementation, you want to take things the next step, maybe you go to peptides and you go through HRT clinics or whatever but that progressive step should be happening for everyone. Today, it's too commonplace to just say, hey, I'm going straight to the end product because I want results now. And you're building a house on a broken foundation. And then people are having all of these health problems, It's great for business, but I don't like people coming to me with these health problems because I would rather them come to me for different reasons, because I don't want anyone to suffer. I don't want anyone in pain. And chronic pain changes people. I work with a lot of higher tier people that everyone know their names, and they will completely open up, and I let people vent to me and talk to me, and like it's their safe place because they know I won't say anything. It's just about being that friend. But it's like chronic pain changes people so much, and they're so strong. They really are such strong people, but it's tough.
If you're someone that's taking supplements or vitamins or anything to help move the needle in terms of your health, how do you know you really need them? And the reason why I'm asking you, how do you know, is because many people don't know their levels of their testosterone, their vitamin D, all these other labs like their thyroid, and they're taking these supplements to help them function at peak performance. But that's why we've partnered with Merrick Health for such a long time now, because you can get yourself different lab panels like the Power Project panel, which is a comprehensive set of labs to help you figure out what your different levels are. And when you do figure out what your levels are, you'll be able to work with a patient care coordinator that will give you suggestions as far as nutrition optimization, supplementation, or if you're someone who's a candidate and it's necessary, hormonal optimization to help move you in the right direction so you're not playing guesswork with your body. Also, if you've already gotten your lab work done, but you just want to get a checkup, we also have a checkup panel that's made so that you can check up and make sure that everything is moving in the right direction if you've already gotten comprehensive lab work done. This is something super important that I've done for myself. I've had my mom work with Merrick. We've all worked with Merrick just to make sure that we're all moving in the right direction and we're not playing guesswork with our body. Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, that's over at merrickhealth.com/powerproject. And at checkout, enter promo code PowerProject to save 10% off any one of these panels or any lab on the entire website. Links in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
Hill sprints, tell us about that.
Yeah. So changing gears up here. So I've been doing hill sprints for a while. I tend to like to do them with my kids. So if you actually look up the Wonderfold stroller, you'll see what I'm talking about. It is like the Hummer of basically like carts for your kids.
Yeah.
So you have this huge stroller. I'll have 3 kids in there. The total weight ends up being like 200-ish pounds. And the one hill by our house, if you walk it, it's about 3 minutes. So then pushing them up it still takes like 3.5, 3.
Sled.
It's hard.
Oh my God.
And there you go. And you can have different, it's so cool. There's a cooler function. There is the little canopy. You can have one for the wintertime. So actually encases them, keeps them nice and warm. It's really cool, but it is heavy. And those tires look as big in person as they are in the picture. They are massive. You can run over anything.
And then you have a weighted vest on too.
Yeah. Usually
How many sets do you do?
1.
Oh, you just do, because it's like 3 or 4 minutes long.
Yeah, 3 or 4 minutes long. It's like the most high intensity, far end spectrum glycolysis you can get to. And so like I've been trying to be more quality oriented the older I'm getting, because it's like you have less time, or I just want to spend that time working or being with my family and kids, So it's like, how can I get the most out of this? For me, I like to do that for the athletic benefits, mainly because the health changes you get. The better you can manage oxygen, like that's literally why our society is very poor in health, because no one's handling oxygen well. It's basically called proton electron leak and slip. So they're slipping off, going to the wrong places, basically causing damage and oxidation. So if you can get to that far end spectrum of glycolysis where it's all lung, like you are just wasting oxygen, you can barely breathe, you get so hypoxic. Hypoxia is the most basic stressor, right? Because how long can you live without food or water versus air? So if you're going that hypoxic route for health or for body composition, or actually if you get really good in that energetic spectrum, it improves how you metabolize all of your peptides, hormones, supplements. So now all of a sudden your TRT dose goes from 200 milligrams to 150, or your, whatever XYZ dose goes from whatever to a little bit less because you're metabolizing it better and getting more out of it because you're handling the energetics and oxygen better.
And we had a doctor come on this podcast talking about sprints and its impact on like visceral fat.
Sean O'Mara.
Sean O'Mara. Yeah. So it does, great stuff for your visceral fat. Obviously, it's going to do things for like your body composition, the cascade of a bunch of amazing things that'll happen just from doing some sprints can be really awesome.
It really is. And you don't I abused myself last year. I was sick like 7 times in the year because I was doing that every single day. And if I didn't have the kids, I'd have the weighted vest and I would sprint up it. I'd come back down. And by the time you get to the top, your legs are pumped. It's like you just did a 30 rep set of squats, I'd come back down and I'd limp down and then I'd get my breath and then I'd do it again. So I do that 2 or 3 times with the vest. And then I wonder why my immune system was so tanked. It's like, you were training too much. You got to chill.
So what's your smart frequency then? If you were to tell somebody to go and start attempting this smart frequency, because it'll beat you up.
Smart frequency, 2-3 times a week. Start off with 2, start off with 1. See how you respond. I'm still doing it every single day, but I'm also not getting sick now. So I balanced out my immune system's response.
Yeah.
But ideally, if I was my own coach, I would say, Alex, stop it. Pull it back to 3 or 4 times.
Maybe don't wear the vest every time.
And that's what I've been doing. I've been slowly being smarter about it because I can be unbiased. I know when I'm doing something stupid. It's maybe not doing the vest or maybe just walking it because even if you walk that hill, it is still tough. You get to the top, you're still out of breath. And I feel like I am very athletic right now. I've never been this athletic, never been this healthy. And I get to the top and me and Lindsay were like we're breathing so heavy. It never gets easier, which is also the fun part of it.
I think that's interesting. It's we talk a lot about nasal breathing, and it's cool to be able to nasal breathe through harder and harder stuff. But there's something about just getting yourself to breathing very hard and being in that Michael Jordan stance, Jordan holding on to his shorts. And I think it's a huge benefit. I realize from a health perspective that maybe not everyone is healthy enough to kind of get themselves to that spot, but that's a great spot to be in. And if you can handle that, maybe, once a week, I think would be a good start for a lot of people.
I agree. Yeah. And like you said, don't start if you can't do it. Like if you are 100 pounds overweight, don't start doing the walks, maybe do some low intensity cardio. I always again, because I make up my own terms, I call it prolastic cardio because we're looking at the elastic portion of the heart. So if you're using it for health-based reasons, what we're trying to do is actually get that heart, I'm trying not to hit this, to be a little more elastic. So when blood comes in, it goes with it. Yeah. You're not having that smashing damage coming in to a stiff atrial wall or ventricular wall. So prolastic, because I couldn't think of anything cooler than that.
So that's one of the vocabulary that you've made?
Yeah.
Prolastic?
Yeah, it was actually me and Andy Trano. We used to have a podcast together. And I just said
I'm glad that you admit making up words because my good friend Kelly Starrett would make up words. And I was like, that's a made up word. He's like, no, it's not. I'm a doctor. And I was like, that's a fucking dirty trick right there.
Yeah. Doctor, he's right.
I know, he was right. I was like, oh, I got to just listen to him.
That's funny. But yeah, me and Andy used to have a podcast together. And I just said it in one breath. It was the first time I said that word out loud. And he's like, wait a minute. Did you just make that up? I was like, yeah. And he loved it because, again, there's no other word out there to describe it. Yeah. So if you're doing that low intensity, steady state cardio for the health, people say the heart health benefits, that's what it's doing. It's adding that elastic nature back to your heart. So it has less of a chance to turn fibrotic or to just have any kind of, myocardial infarction or any kind of damage because it's not hitting a wall. It's going with the actual flow.
And Nsima's been punching stuff lately. Been punching a bag, kicking a bag, right?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Alex has been boxing for many years, right?
Yeah.
And is that something you still keep up with?
I do, yeah. I'm coming back to me training too much. I'm modulating it with the hill sprints because what I would like to do, because I could do rounds forever. I could do 5-minute rounds, punching the majority of the time. Because to me,
that's a lot of work.
Well,
and you're a big guy. How much do you weigh?
250.
Yeah, that's a lot of
Thursday,
weight.
I was 250.2. And if I keep eating this way, I'll probably be up to 260 pretty soon. I'm fairly lean. I got my abs, I got some veins, not fat. And I was the fat kid growing up. So like, to me, this is lean. So I'm happy, you know, but I'm trying not to get too heavy just from a longevity aspect. I'm not trying to chase body weight, but it's also like, if I get any leaner than I am right now, I couldn't keep up with my current workload. So it's like the emotional toll that my weeks take me, from family to clients to everything. I love it. Wouldn't change it for the world, but I also need to operate this way. So I can't diet right now. I want to, but again, time and place for everything.
What gets you the worst, Ben & Jerry's or pizza?
Actually, this Chinese food. And Chipotle.
There you go.
That's been our go-to lately. I'll get like 2 big, nice burritos, double wrapped, double chicken, double white rice, bag of chips, my lemonade, you know. It's so good. And the kids love Chipotle, or they'll get like Chick-fil-A. Like, we make it fun. They're the only kids out there that are like refeeding every week. It's like, oh, it's refeed time, you know? And it's a bonding experience.
That's great.
Another made up word. So the cheat meals, I call them deflux meals. Because why are you having, well, everyone says when you talk about a cheat meal, they say like, oh, it's something about the McDonald's, or it's something about this, that. In reality, it's the dopaminergic flux you get from eating a food that you emotionally are invested in. So it's like, oh, we're fluxing dopamine.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that's deflux, makes it easier. And if you're doing a high carbohydrate, you're fluxing glucose, so deflux. It's, you know, that simple.
Could be just snorting cocaine.
Right? Yeah.
With that dopamine hit.
Right? I mean, you could,
bump.
you know.
Quick question, man. Going back to your the hard workouts you do for your cardio, right? Yep. Did you notice after doing that, did it have any effect on your HRV?
I actually don't track my HRV.
No.
Like by traditional numbers. I love HRV as a metric, but it's just like reference ranges.
Yeah.
Matters for you.
It's different.
Yeah. Some people are amazing at 25. And then when they get really stressed and systemically fatigued, they're like 10. So we know that's their range. Other people, I have them in like the hundreds, and they'll come down to like 200, but they're like 250 when they're good. So you find your range, and then you know, okay, that's never I'm recovered. But we never want to look at that metric and say, I'm recovered or I'm not.
Yeah.
Assess yourself first. What's your biofeedback telling you? If you're beat up, then you should look at it and expect to see a lower score. If it's still not lower, then it still doesn't mean very much because you're not feeling it. But that can also be the red flag to say, hey, it's about to happen. You know, so it's a great metric. I personally use my own way to track HRV, which is essentially the ability to get your heart rate up extremely high and pull it back down to recover. So if I'm recovering, like when I first started doing the hill sprints or first started doing all the boxing rounds and stuff like that, it could take me like 3 to 5, 6, 7 minutes to recover from that stuff. Now it's like we get to the top of that hill and we just keep walking. I don't stop. It's still hard. You know, you're recovered in maybe 2 minutes, but I'm not sitting there gasping for air again, like, you know, the hands on knees type thing. So,
okay.
But yeah, HRV is awesome. I think it's just like everything else, like just a little misunderstood. You know?
Okay.
So that makes sense, though. You podcasting with Andy Triana, Super Brain.
Right. I love that dude.
Both of you guys have this crazy ability to retain information, and it seems like when there's something you want to focus on and learn, you can clear out the noise very well and focus on that one thing. You read a thing and you actually understand the thing, whether it's nootropics or any other protocols that you can help me out with, because my thing right now, it's funny, I was actually just talking to Andy about this morning. If especially for personal development stuff, I'll hear something from like Alex Hormozy or whoever it is. I'll be 5 seconds in and boom, a million ideas come to mind.
Yeah.
I stop paying attention to whatever the hell the thing is. And then I can't even grasp any of those ideas because they're all coming in so fast. I'm like, what was I? Okay. Oh my God, it's been on for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
What am I even listening to? Like, this doesn't make sense. So it's been really hard for me to stay on track with whatever it is that I'm trying to pay attention to. So with all that in mind, do you have any advice or any protocols or anything to help with, you know, focus, especially with the memory and information retention?
Tons. Yes. So first, again, do the action, then take the supplement. So the actions could be something as simple as like, do you ever play the Elevate app?
No.
It's one of the best apps in the world. I think it's like $30 or $40 for your subscription. And it's essentially, I call them your neurological reps for the day. So it's the brain games. There's no research, no literature behind it, because you read the research, it's like, oh, this doesn't help you. And in reality, again, I told you I was the naturally dumb person my whole life. Found what I loved, and I feel like I'm at least proficient now. And that Elevate app was a big part of that. It's just the daily neurological reps. So there's math, there's English, there's vocabulary. There's so many different things, and you want to work at all of them.
Downloading now.
Yeah, it's worth it. Oh, it's so cool. So start off every day with that. Okay. You could do that while you're doing your red light therapy. And then after that, you can do, there's a ton of different things. Like throughout the day, you could use your non-dominant hand. And that's going to slowly start improving that hemisphere connection of the brain. So decision-making improves, higher cortex, overall higher executive functioning improves, like almost everything just by using your non-dominant hand because it's creating new neural pathways. Mm-hmm. So that's what you're lacking right now. You are basically truncated. And so your brain's basically it doesn't have neuroplasticity, the ability to grow, progress, all that fun stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's this size. We want to get that brain volume improved. We want to increase how your neurons are growing. Mm-hmm. So if you're doing all this fun stuff, then maybe you do bring in like the tiger's milk we were talking about before to just be the NGF mimetic. And then maybe you start doing that and you do super well. And then all of a sudden you start getting brain fog, you start getting tired because you're using your brain more now. You're creating new neurons, new patterns, and you have to fuel that with acetylcholine. So then your alpha GPC could come in to just replace raw acetylcholine. Or if you don't respond well to that, you go to acetyl L-carnitine, so the oral version. So that acylated variation that'll donate methyl groups to the acetylcholine synthetic process. So your body endogenously will just produce more acetylcholine.
Okay, you said alpha GPC, and then you said acetylcholine orally. So then what version would the alpha GPC be?
That is actually, you want the L, the left-handed enantiomer. So if you look on the back, it'll literally say L alpha glycerol phosphocholone. Mm-hmm. We want that. That's the actual full product. So if you're getting a product and it says that, that's the full 300 milligrams. Mm-hmm. If it just says alpha glycerol phosphocholone, then that's both enantiomers. So then you're going to be like at 150. You should have to double the dose.
Damn. Okay. And Nsima's getting all excited because were you thinking about rote flow too?
Well, I was thinking about a bunch of things, and I wanted you to just like explain to us what is happening on there's this thing called rope flow that you saw us doing both sides.
That was cool. I liked it.
Yeah. And one thing, the guy who really popularized it, David Weck, he mentioned that it's really good for the brain because of the coordination and rotation on both sides of the body, both hands. I started doing a lot of juggling, and I'm just, oddly enough, in the most recent months, as I've gone deeper and deeper down these rabbit holes, I've started to have just more and more ideas proliferate. And I've just been like, people are talking about this stuff being good for the brain. And I'm like, ideas I've had that I've like, with things are just coming. So what is going on there? And why can this stuff be good for the brain?
Yep. So we're trying to do a couple things. First of all, if you look at like the longevity of our brain, if you look at not even IQ, but actual real intelligence, right? That's almost directly correlated with brain mass and brain volume. Like that's been pretty well documented. You go under the hood and you start realizing that there's a connectivity problem with certain people between left and right hemispheres. You then start realizing that some people have a myelination problem. So those neurons, the coating around them, it's getting kind of worn. So connectivity starts to go down. That's the Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, which isn't really an amyloid plaque problem at all. The plaque's actually being protective, but that's a different conversation. People can have all these different problems. So all you're doing is literally exercising those different parts of your brain and basically getting them to hypertrophy, because everything in our body is plastic. You can change it. So you can hypertrophy, you can atrophy, any organ, any tissue, anything.
And there's no age limit, because you hear like certain people, like you hear it mentioned that after a certain age, you can't necessarily improve the neuroplasticity of your brain. You've heard that before. How true is that? Like, what does that mean when scientists are saying that?
I personally don't believe it because I've never seen that play out. So what tends to happen is 30 to 50 years old hits, plasmalogen levels decline, and then all of a sudden brain volume declines. So you're seeing Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, or people like the old dog that's not learning new tricks type thing. It's that biological phenomenon of those plasmalogen levels coming down on top of the accumulation of like everything else that's going on in our society today. So if you are replacing those plasmalogens, now you are actually having those neurons that have the right shell, the right coating. So communication goes up. You know, we talk about like products to look up or buy, Prodrome, Prodrome. They have a glial and a neural product, and they're absolutely awesome. The neural one is more gray matter. So that's more like processing speed, performance. You take it in the morning, a little more stimulatory. I really love the glial one. The Prodrome glial is the white matter side of things, wherever we're actually driving repair. So that you're taking before bed, a little bit of a calming effect. If you're actually taking that omega-9 glial product, you cannot get a TBI. You literally cannot get a TBI because as soon as you have that damage occur, it starts to myelinate. Again, it starts to repair those neurons right away.
Wow.
So a lot of people, I won't do it like, right out of the gate, but as I work with more people in the NFL, NHL, or like the high contact sports, like, they're boat loading a lot of plasmalogens because if not, they're going to all be getting TBIs.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's amazing that no one or not as many people know about it.
Yeah. And it's, again, that's why shout outs to Prodrome. They make an amazing product. So I hope they get a lot of business off it. I know they're already a big company, but like they have great products. They really do.
I have just a comparative question. You know, like you hear so much again from professionals, and especially docs, after the age of 30, bone density and muscle mass will decrease. Obviously, in fitness, we know it's with you don't take any type of action. But would you say it's the same thing with the messaging on the brain? Like when people say you can't build plasticity in the brain after a certain age, is that the same idea here where you can, but you're not going to if you're not taking any action?
Exactly. So we talked about the longevity side of things and how many people stop learning. Once they're out of school, they might learn for their job, but very few people are actually reading or doing those neuroplastic drills and games.
Yeah, writing, doing puzzles. Yeah.
Oh, the cursive writing is so big. Yeah. And that's a
bring
big
back cursive,
reason.
huh?
Yeah. Oh, you have to. I'm teaching my kids cursive. I'm doing cursive every day. You know, that ability to nonstop keep going improves communication. It improves actual understanding of context. It does so many things neurologically. And it stinks to say, but that's why the IQ in general of our society is going down because nobody's doing cursive writing anymore. Everything's texting. If they're lucky, they're using a pen or pencil. That's true. But it's just one letter at a time because that's all you can process and comprehend versus writing your name out with that nonstop. You always got to be thinking and firing. So even cursive writing can be so big. Like that's something you can get into and really help out.
Yeah. I'm just thinking a lot of people I do it too, but voice to text now. And it's getting a step further away from cursive. And we just think like, oh, it's just no big deal. I'm still communicating, no big deal. But it's like, oh shit, we're actually literally losing the connection to like writing and communicating. That's, again, one of those things that seems so, I don't know, so innocent. It's like kind of making us dumber.
And you don't think about it. That's the problem because like the education just isn't out there. No one's talking about these things enough. Or the people that are talking about it, they don't have the huge platforms. They're not, the companies that are selling those products, which I get it. Everyone's has a business making money at the end of the day. That's cool. But it's like, just like with the supplements and drug conversation, it's like, hey, this is what this does positive, but this is also what does negative. Yeah. You're an adult, make your own decision,
Where can people find you? How can people contact you and learn more?
Super simple. theprepcoach.com. And then on Instagram, it's Alex_KIKEL.
Love it. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.